He left his wife home for the company gala, then she walked in and everything collapsed. For 3 years, Claire Cole let her husband treat her like an embarrassment. Then he took another woman to the most important night of his career and told Claire to stay home. He expected silence. What he did not expect was the black gown, the billionaire waiting across the ballroom, or the divorce papers that would expose a marriage built on secrets neither of them understood. "Is that really what you're wearing?" Ethan Cole stood in the foyer of our house in Brookline and looked me over from my shoes to my hair. He did not bother hiding the disgust in his face. I glanced down at myself. Gray sweater. Black slacks. Flat leather shoes with a crease near the toes. The sweater was 3 years old and had faded at the elbows, but it was clean. Everything I wore was clean. That had never been the problem. "I don't have anything else," I said. 3 years, Claire. He checked the silver watch at his wrist, a gift from the Coal Industries board after his promotion. "You've been married to me for 3 years, and it never occurred to you to buy one decent dress?" He gave a short laugh that held no humor. "Forget it. Stay home. Vanessa and I are already late." Vanessa Reed stepped out from behind him as though she had been waiting for her cue. Her sapphire gown fit her like it had been poured over her body. The heels were so thin they looked impossible to walk in. At her throat, a diamond pendant flashed beneath the chandelier, bright enough to make me blink. She smiled at me with the careful sympathy people use when they want their cruelty to look like kindness. "I'll make sure Ethan gets home safely," she said. "I hope you don't mind." I looked at the hand resting on my husband's arm. "I don't," I said. For 1 second, Ethan seemed almost irritated that I had not fought with him. Then he opened the door, placed his palm at Vanessa's back, and guided her out into the November night. The door shut. From the kitchen, Rosa Alvarez leaned around the doorway. She had worked in Ethan's family home since he was a teenager and had been assigned to our house after the wedding. The pity in her eyes hurt worse than anything Ethan had said. "Mrs. Cole," she began quietly, "that woman has been here 4 times this month. Mr. Cole is not even trying to." "Is dinner ready, Rosa?" She stopped. Her mouth tightened. "Yes. But he said he wouldn't be eating." "I will." The dining table could seat 14 people. That night it held 3 covered dishes, a bowl of soup, 2 place settings, and one woman who had learned how to swallow humiliation without changing her expression. I ate slowly. 3 years earlier, half of Boston's business community had whispered about our wedding. Ethan Cole, the polished young heir to Coal Industries, had married a woman no one had heard of. There had been no engagement party, no photographs in the society pages, no ballroom reception. We had signed the license at City Hall on a rainy Tuesday. Ethan had put a plain gold band on my finger because his mother said there was no point spending money on something temporary. At dinner 2 weeks later, Margaret Cole told one of her sisters, while I sat 3 feet away, "Ethan has always had a soft heart." He felt sorry for her. I had not needed his pity. I simply had not defended myself. Silence had been easier at first. Then it became habit. Eventually it became a hiding place. After dinner, I went upstairs and stood under the shower until the water cooled. Steam clouded the mirror, softening the outline of my face. When I wiped the glass with my palm, a woman in black-framed glasses stared back at me. My skin was not pale enough for Margaret Cole's approval, and my hair was too straight to look expensive without effort. But there was nothing plain about my face when I removed the glasses. My eyes looked sharper. My cheekbones looked higher. I looked like the woman in old business magazines, the one photographed beside private equity partners in Manhattan and ministers in Singapore. I put the glasses back on. My phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. Ethan had sent a text. "Tomorrow night is the charity gala. Don't come." Vanessa will attend with me. You'd be uncomfortable, and honestly, your whole look would reflect badly on the company. I read the message twice. Then I typed, understood. I opened the closet and knelt beside the lowest shelf. Behind a stack of folded blankets was a black velvet box I had not touched since moving into the house. I pulled it forward but did not open it. Not yet. The next afternoon, I was trimming dead leaves from the rose bushes when Ethan's black Mercedes rolled into the driveway. His driver, Frank Heiress, hurried around to open the rear door. Vanessa stepped out first. She was wearing a cream coat and oversized sunglasses. Ethan came out after her, and she immediately looped both arms around one of his as if standing upright required his support. When she noticed me beside the garden bed, she smiled. "Claire, Ethan took me to Maison Laurent last night," she said. "You know, the French place in Back Bay? Their reservation list is 3 months long. Have you ever been?" I pressed the soil around the base of a rose. "No." That answer seemed to please her. Ethan frowned at my sweater. It was another gray one. "Why do you keep wearing this stuff?" he asked. "Do I not give you enough money?" "You give me plenty." "Then why do you make it look like my family has been starving you?" His irritation rose quickly, as if my clothes were a public accusation. "There's a gathering tonight. Don't bother coming. Too many people already." I wasn't planning to. The words left my mouth before I could soften them. He paused. For the first time in days, he actually looked at my face. Surprise flickered there, followed by something colder. "At least you understand your limitations," he said. He led Vanessa into the house. Frank remained by the car, turning his cap in his hands. He had driven Ethan's father before Ethan was born. He was a patient man with a careful voice, and he had never once asked me why I stayed. That afternoon, he looked as if he might. "Mr. Heiress," I said, "you can tell me." He glanced toward the front door. "Tonight isn't a small gathering, Mrs. Cole. It's the company's 30th anniversary gala. Every major shareholder, lender, and partner will be there. By tradition, the chief executive attends with his spouse. I set the pruning shears on the stone wall. Could you drive me tonight?" His eyes widened. "You're going?" "Yes." I brushed the dirt from my palms. But not as Ethan Cole's wife. He did not understand. I could see that. Still, he nodded. At 4 o'clock, the house became quiet. Ethan left with Vanessa shortly after that. Rosa had the evening off, and the security system hummed softly in empty rooms. I locked the bedroom door. Then I opened the velvet box. Inside was a pair of platinum panther earrings set with diamonds. They were elegant rather than loud, the kind of jewelry that revealed its value only to people trained to recognize it. My mother had worn them to the last public dinner she attended before she died. I fastened them with steady hands. The black gown hanging in the garment bag had been made 5 years earlier by an independent designer in Paris. It was his final couture piece before cancer took him. Heavy silk. Long sleeves. A fitted waist. A skirt that moved like spilled ink. There was no label anyone could photograph and search online. There was only one gown like it in the world. I dressed without rushing. I twisted my hair into a low knot, added a trace of color to my lips, and stood in front of the mirror. Then I removed my glasses. The woman looking back at me had not disappeared. She had only been waiting. At 7, Frank pulled into the underground entrance of the Boston Harbor Convention Center. Before I got out, I handed him an envelope. "What is this?" he asked. "A thank you." He opened it, saw the cashier's check, and nearly dropped it. "Mrs. Cole, no. This is too much." "It isn't. I opened the door. You were kind when kindness would have cost everyone else nothing, and they still refused to offer it. His eyes shone. Please don't call me Mrs. Cole tonight, I added. I stepped into the garage before he could answer. My heels struck the concrete in clean, measured beats. With each step, the walls seemed to throw the sound back at me. The elevator climbed to the main floor. When the doors opened, light and noise rushed in. The ballroom glittered beneath crystal fixtures. Cameras lined the red carpet outside the glass entrance. Men in tailored tuxedos and women in silk gowns moved between towers of white flowers and silver trays of champagne. A string quartet played near the staircase, almost drowned out by conversation. Cole Industries had spent more than $1 million celebrating its survival. 3 years earlier, the company had been weeks from default. No one at the party seemed interested in remembering that. I entered without announcing myself. A few heads turned, then turned again. Most guests assumed I belonged to someone important. In rooms like that, confidence worked better than an invitation. I took a champagne flute from a passing server and stood near a marble column. Across the ballroom, Ethan was laughing with 3 board members. He wore a midnight blue tuxedo, his hair combed perfectly back from his forehead. In public, he was warm, attentive, almost gentle. Watching him, no one would have guessed how easily that expression vanished at home. Vanessa stood at his side, her hand tucked through his arm. A woman I recognized as the wife of a venture capital partner approached them. "You two make such a beautiful couple," she said. "Honestly, Ethan, you should stop pretending otherwise." Vanessa lowered her eyes with practiced modesty. "He is married." "To that mystery wife from nowhere?" The woman's voice dropped, though not enough. "The one who never finished high school? No one believes she's really part of his life. Everyone knows you're the woman beside him." Vanessa smiled and tightened her grip on my husband. Ethan did not correct her. Worse, he looked at Vanessa with a tenderness he had never once shown me. I lifted the champagne glass, watching the bubbles climb toward the surface. Then the room changed. Conversations quieted near the entrance. People began turning, straightening, moving aside. Richard Whitmore had arrived. My father was 72 and walked with an ebony cane after hip surgery, but age had not diminished him. He had founded Whitmore Group with 2 partners and a borrowed office 45 years earlier. By the time I was born, the company owned logistics networks, energy assets, software firms, and enough commercial real estate to alter a city skyline. He had retired from public life 3 years ago. He almost never attended galas. The people nearest him rushed forward. Ethan moved fastest. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, extending both hands. "I'm honored you came." My father accepted the greeting with a single nod. Everyone in the room knew Whitmore Group had saved Cole Industries. Fewer people knew that my father's approval had been the only reason Ethan became chief executive instead of being pushed aside during the restructuring. Ethan knew the facts. He had never known the reason. 3 years earlier, a lawyer claiming to represent Whitmore Group had approached him with an offer. Whitmore would invest enough to stabilize Cole Industries, but Ethan had to marry a woman selected by the Whitmore family. That woman had been me. Ethan believed he had been forced into a humiliating transaction. He assumed the Whitmores had found some poor, unsophisticated woman and used her as the price of rescue. He never asked why. He never asked where I had been born, where I had studied, or what name appeared on my birth certificate before our wedding. He had not asked much of anything. Vanessa whispered in his ear. Ethan nodded and brought her forward. "Mr. Whitmore, this is Vanessa Reed, my executive assistant." She held out her hand. "It's an honor to meet you. I've heard so much about your leadership." My father looked at her hand but did not take it. "Good evening," he said. Then his eyes moved over the crowd. They found me beside the column. His lips parted. Claire. He did not say it aloud, but I saw my name form. I gave the smallest shake of my head. Not yet. He turned away and resumed speaking to the board chairman. But Ethan had noticed. He followed my father's gaze. His eyes landed on me. At first he frowned, trying to place the face. Then his pupils widened. Confusion gave way to shock, and shock gave way to something unguarded and almost frightened. He released Vanessa's arm. Then he started toward me. He moved as if the floor beneath him had shifted. When he reached the column, he stopped less than 3 feet away. His eyes traveled from my face to the gown, from the gown to my mother's earrings, then back to my face. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Finally, he said, "Are you a Whitmore?" I set my champagne on a server's tray. "Ethan," I said, "I was married to you for 3 years, and you never once asked what my last name was before I took yours." He went still. I walked past him toward the center of the ballroom. Behind me, Vanessa called, "Ethan?" "Who is she?" No one answered. His phone rang. I heard him pick up on the second ring. "What do you mean, Whitmore is withdrawing?" "All of it?" His voice sharpened. "Who authorized that?" I kept walking. "What announcement?" he demanded. "No, put him on the phone." Hello?" The stage lights came on. At the far end of the ballroom, my father climbed the steps one at a time. The quartet stopped playing. Within seconds, the room was silent. My father stood behind the podium while hundreds of people waited for him to explain why one of the most private men in American business had appeared at a celebration for a company he did not own. "Thank you for inviting me to Cole Industries' 30th anniversary," he began. His voice was not loud, but the sound system carried it cleanly across the room. "I know this evening was meant to honor endurance. Cole Industries has survived difficult years, and many people here contributed to that survival. Since so many shareholders and partners are present, however, I need to make an announcement." Beside the stage, Ethan still held his phone. His knuckles had gone white around it. Vanessa pushed through the crowd and reached him. "What's happening?" she whispered. "Why do you look like that?" He did not look at her. My father rested both hands on the top of his cane. "As of tonight, Whitmore Group is ending its strategic partnership with Cole Industries." For one stunned heartbeat, no one moved. Then the ballroom erupted. "What did he say?" "They're pulling out?" Whitmore accounts for nearly 40% of Cole's contracted revenue. "Call New York. Get legal on the phone." The panic spread through the room faster than flame through dry paper. Guests stepped away from Ethan as a financial collapse might be contagious. Board members surrounded him. 2 major shareholders began speaking over each other. "Did you know about this?" "What did you do?" "The agreement runs 2 more years." "Do you understand what this will do to the credit line Monday morning?" Ethan's jaw tightened. He ignored them and walked toward the stage. "Mr. Whitmore," he called, forcing calm into his voice, "there must be a misunderstanding. We should discuss this privately." My father looked down at him. There was no anger in his face. That made it worse. He looked at Ethan the way he might have looked at a failed investment already written off. "There is no misunderstanding. Our contract has a 5-year term. And a termination provision," my father said. "Whitmore Group may end the agreement at any time. The penalty will be paid in full." "I don't want a penalty." A thread of desperation entered Ethan's voice. "Whitmore is our most important partner. If there's a performance issue, tell me. Whatever I did, I'll fix it." "You cannot fix it." My father stepped away from the microphone. Ethan moved closer. Sir, wait. My father turned toward the stairs. Mr. Whitmore. Ethan's control cracked. Did someone say something about me? If I've been accused of anything, I have a right to know. The ballroom fell quiet again. Every camera near the entrance was now pointed at the stage. Several guests had their phones raised. Ethan, who guarded his public image with obsessive care, stood shouting at a 72-year-old investor during his own company gala. My father turned back. For an instant, I thought he might tell him everything. Instead, he shook his head. He descended the steps. Halfway down, his gaze swept the room and found me again. This time, people noticed. The crowd between us shifted. Guests looked from my father to me, then moved aside until a clear path opened across the ballroom. I stood at the end of it in black silk, one hand resting lightly at my side. Whispers rose. Who is she? I've seen that face somewhere. Is she with Whitmore? That dress isn't from any current collection. Wait. She came in alone. Ethan turned. The expression on his face made the room feel suddenly smaller. He understood that the announcement had something to do with me. He did not yet understand how much. Vanessa caught his sleeve. Ethan, who is that woman? He pulled free without answering. He crossed the ballroom slowly, each step measured, as though moving too fast might make the truth arrive sooner. When he stopped in front of me, the guests nearest us fell silent. What is your relationship with Richard Whitmore? He asked. I held his gaze. Answer me, Claire. His voice was low, but the command in it was familiar. It was the same tone he used at home when he believed my silence belonged to him. I tilted my head. You already asked me. What? You asked whether I was a Whitmore. The color left his face. A woman behind him inhaled sharply. Someone farther back said, no way. The whispers exploded into overlapping questions. Richard Whitmore only has one child. His daughter has been overseas for years. Claire Whitmore, the investment executive? Ethan's wife is Claire Whitmore? I thought he married some girl from a rural town. That's what he told people. Vanessa had finally reached us. Her confidence was gone. She looked from Ethan to me as if one of us had changed shape in front of her. You said she had no education, she whispered. You said she had no family, no connections. You said she was some nobody your investors forced you to marry. Ethan did not respond. His eyes remained fixed on me. Shock was giving way to anger, because anger was easier for him than shame. You knew, he said. I said nothing. You knew who you were the entire time. His voice rose. You married me and let me believe. Believe what? That you were. He glanced at the people surrounding us and stopped before saying the word he had used so many times in private. Beneath him. Uncultured. A burden. He stepped closer. You watched me bring Vanessa to the house. You watched me exclude you from events. You let me say things to you while you were secretly standing there as Richard Whitmore's daughter. The accusation was so astonishing that for a second I almost laughed. You think my identity made your choices less real? I asked. His hand closed around my wrist. The grip was immediate and hard enough to press my bracelet into bone. You were testing me, he said. This was a game to you. You wanted to watch me humiliate myself. Let go. Tell me the truth. Ethan, you're hurting me. The room around us had gone unnaturally still. I could hear the faint hum of the lights and the quick shutter of a professional camera. His fingers loosened slightly but did not release me. You think I'm going to regret everything now? His voice dropped into something rough and private. You think I'll beg because your father has money? Being a Whitmore doesn't change the last 3 years. You were still the woman I didn't want. You were still the wife I was ashamed to bring anywhere. You hid behind cheap clothes and those ridiculous glasses because you didn't even have the courage to say who you were. He leaned closer. You don't get to turn yourself into the victim after setting a trap. Enough. My father's voice cut through the ballroom. The crowd parted again. He came toward us with 2 aides and a gray-suited man I recognized from the Whitmore legal team's executive floor, though I did not know his name. The man carried a thick cream envelope. My father's face had flushed dark with anger. Take your hand off my daughter. The word daughter traveled through the room like a shock wave. Ethan looked at him, then at me. His fingers opened one by one. I pulled my wrist against my body. A red band was already forming where he had held me. My father stopped between us. I will say this once, he told Ethan. I signed the order ending our partnership. Claire did not ask me to do it tonight. It was not a negotiation tactic, and it was not a response to a business disagreement. He looked Ethan directly in the eyes. I did it because you are not worthy of her. A muscle jumped in Ethan's cheek. For 3 years, you made her invisible in her own home, my father continued. You brought another woman to public events while your wife ate alone. You mocked her clothes. You mocked her education. You told your employees she would embarrass you. My father's anger was quiet now, sharpened by control. Do you know she was admitted to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology at 16? That she completed degrees in economics and computer science before she turned 21? That she spent 2 years in New York restructuring distressed companies while you were still asking your father for a seat at his board table? At 24, she took responsibility for Whitmore Group's international assets. She has negotiated agreements larger than the market value of coal industries. No one spoke. I could feel hundreds of eyes on my face. Ethan's lips parted. Why didn't anyone tell me? My father stared at him. When your representative approached me, you said I was marrying a woman selected by the Whitmore family. You never said she was your daughter. His voice was no longer angry. It was almost pleading. You never gave me her background. You didn't even give me her full name until the license appointment. Would it have made you kinder? My father asked. Ethan froze. If I had told you she controlled billions in assets, would you have respected her? He swallowed. Yes, he said, too quickly. My father's expression hardened. That is precisely the problem. The answer struck harder than a shout. You resented the marriage because you believed a poor woman had been placed above you, my father said. You treated her decency as weakness and her privacy as proof she had nothing. You were willing to honor her only if her name increased your value. Vanessa stood a few feet away, looking as pale as the flowers on the tables. I didn't know, she said. Her voice trembled. Ethan told me his marriage wasn't real. He said they had no relationship and would divorce as soon as the investment period ended. Stop talking, Ethan snapped. She flinched. He did not look at her again. Instead, he turned to me. His posture changed. The fury drained from his face, leaving fear and calculation exposed beneath it. Come home with me, he said. I almost did not recognize the gentleness in his voice. We need to talk privately. There are things we both misunderstood. I looked at the red marks on my wrist. You said, less than 5 minutes ago, that I wasn't even a real woman to you. His face tightened. Claire. Now you're asking me to go home. As what? He opened his mouth, but no answer came. From the crowd, someone murmured, he insulted his wife in front of his girlfriend, then found out who her father was. A few people laughed before disguising the sound as coughing. Color climbed from Ethan's collar to his ears. The gray-suited man beside my father stepped forward. "Ms. Whitmore," he said, offering the cream envelope, "the documents you requested are complete." I took it. Ethan stared at the envelope. "What is that?" I did not answer. He reached for it. I stepped back and opened the flap. The first page carried a bold heading. "Petition and agreement for divorce." Ethan's hand dropped. For the first time since I had known him, he looked truly stunned. "I'll remove my belongings tomorrow," I said. "The house was yours before the marriage." "I don't want it. I'm waiving any claim to your separate property, and the agreement confirms you have no claim to mine." He stared at the pages. "You planned this." "I prepared for it." "Those are not the same thing." "They became the same thing when you told me not to attend tonight." His eyes lifted to mine. "The last 3 years are settled," I said. "Whatever I owed this marriage, I paid. After tonight, we are finished." I closed the envelope and turned away. The room burst into motion. Reporters crowded the glass doors. Executives tried to reach my father. Coal board members shouted into phones, already calculating losses. Several guests called my name, hoping a conversation might become a future advantage. I walked through all of it. Frank was waiting near the entrance. He must have come upstairs after seeing the news alerts on his phone. His eyes were red. "Mrs. Claire," I said. He nodded and hurried to open the door. Behind me, Ethan shouted, "Wait." I kept walking. "Claire, stop." His footsteps followed across the polished floor and through the entrance. By the time he reached the curb, his tuxedo jacket hung open, his tie had shifted, and a lock of hair had fallen across his forehead. He caught the car door before Frank could close it. "You can't leave." I looked up at him from the back seat. "Why?" "Because I haven't reviewed the agreement." He was breathing hard. "I'm not signing anything tonight." "You don't have to sign tonight. I have meetings tomorrow. We'll discuss it Monday at my office." His hand remained pressed against the door. I studied his face. "What are you afraid of?" "I'm not afraid." "You're not afraid of losing me," I said. "You're afraid Whitmore Group's withdrawal will destroy coal industries before you can refinance." His jaw locked. "You want to delay the divorce because you think staying married to me might keep my father's money inside your company. Claire, business decisions aren't made in a ballroom. This one was." "Your father is angry." "People make irrational choices when they're angry." "My father built Whitmore Group by knowing the difference between anger and risk." Ethan's fingers tightened on the doorframe. "Even if I remain your wife," I said, "the investment is gone. The marriage and the partnership are separate matters." His expression changed then. Something inside him went dark and hollow, as if he had finally accepted that no clever conversation could reverse the evening. I pulled the door free of his hand. Frank closed it. The window rose between us. Just before the glass sealed, Ethan spoke. "You planned this from the day you married me, didn't you?" The window reached the top. His face became a reflection layered over city lights. Frank drove away. In the rearview mirror, Ethan remained on the curb, his tuxedo moving in the cold wind. He looked less like a chief executive than a man who had stepped out of a building and discovered the street was gone. I leaned back and closed my eyes. My phone vibrated. I expected another message from Ethan. Instead, a text from an unknown local number appeared on the screen. "Water girl, impressive performance tonight. But are you certain you want the divorce? Before you sign anything, ask who arranged your marriage 3 years ago. It may not have been your father." I read it twice. The nickname stopped me more than the warning. Water girl. In college, a few friends had called me that because my Chinese mother used to write the character for water beside my English name in letters. Almost no one knew. Outside the window, Boston's lights slid past in broken gold lines. For the first time that night, I felt cold. When the Mercedes stopped outside the Brookline house, I did not move. Frank waited with both hands on the steering wheel. He had driven me through snowstorms, funerals, board meetings, and one silent ride home after Ethan forgot our first anniversary. He knew when not to fill a silence. "Go home," I finally said. "Your wife will be worried." He looked at me in the mirror. "Are you sure you should be alone tonight?" "No," I said honestly. "But I need to be." He hesitated, then nodded. I watched the taillights disappear down the curved drive before turning toward the house. Every downstairs light was on. The place looked warm from the outside, almost welcoming, but when I opened the door the silence felt sealed and airless. Rosa was gone. Ethan had not returned. The grandfather clock in the living room marked each second with unnecessary precision. I stood in the foyer where he had judged my clothes the night before. The black gown brushed the same floorboards. My mother's earrings felt heavy now. I went upstairs to the dressing room. 3 years of marriage occupied one narrow corner of a room larger than my first apartment in New York. 5 sweaters. 2 pairs of slacks. A winter coat. Flat shoes lined neatly beneath the shelf. On Ethan's side, custom suits were arranged by season. Ties hung by color. 30 pairs of polished shoes sat beneath soft cabinet lights. A glass partition separated our wardrobes. I had once thought the divider was a designer's choice. Now it looked like the most honest thing in the house. I placed the divorce papers in a drawer and sat on the carpet with my back against the cabinets. Then I replied to the unknown number. "Who are you?" The message showed as delivered. A moment later, it showed as read. No response came. I waited 3 minutes. Then 5. After 10, I called. The phone was already turned off. I searched the number through a private database I still had access to from my years overseeing Whitmore security reviews. It had been activated with prepaid information and routed through a Boston exchange. No owner. No billing address. No useful location history. Someone had taken time to make sure I could not trace it. That meant the message was not a prank. I set the phone beside me and forced myself to review the marriage from the beginning. 3 years earlier, I had been living in Manhattan and sleeping 5 hours a night if I was lucky. Whitmore Group's overseas portfolio was spread across 12 countries and 3 time zones. My desk held separate phones for London, New York, and Hong Kong. On the day my father called, I had just finished a restructuring agreement involving $1.2 billion in shipping assets. I had not eaten since morning. "Come to Boston," he said. "I have a board session tomorrow." "Move it." My father did not usually make demands without explanation. That was why I listened. He arrived in New York the next afternoon instead. He came directly to my office, dismissed my assistants, and closed the glass door. "I arranged a marriage for you," he said. For several seconds, I assumed he was joking. My father did not joke about business, health, or family. Marriage appeared to fall into all 3 categories. "No," I said. "You haven't heard the name." "I don't need the name. The family is respectable. We have history with them. I have 3,700 employees reporting into companies I oversee, a financing round that closes next week, and a government review in Brussels. I don't have time to date, much less marry a stranger." "You won't need to date him." That is not reassuring. He sat across from me, both hands resting on the head of his cane. His hip had begun troubling him that year, though he refused surgery. The Cole family helped your grandfather when Whitmore was still a trucking company with 6 vehicles, he said. Their company is in trouble now. This marriage will align the families and stabilize the partnership. I stared at him. You're trading me for a corporate rescue? His face hardened. I am asking you to protect something that matters. What matters? Coal industries? He looked away toward the skyline. That small movement should have warned me. Instead, I mistook it for guilt. I've looked into Ethan Cole, he said. He is educated, disciplined, and more capable than his father. He has made mistakes, but I believe he can become a good man. Have you met him? Not recently. Does he know who I am? He knows the marriage is connected to Whitmore. That was not an answer, but I was tired. My father had suffered a mild heart attack 6 months earlier. My mother had been dead for a decade. I was his only child, and the fear of losing him had made obedience feel like love. I agreed to one meeting. Ethan chose a cafe near Boston Common. He arrived in a white shirt with his sleeves rolled to the forearms. Sunlight fell through the window and caught the edge of his profile. He stood when I approached and shook my hand. Claire, he said. Thank you for coming. His voice sounded sincere. We spoke for 40 minutes. He asked what books I liked but not what I did for work. When I said I had been living in New York, he assumed I worked in an office. I allowed the assumption to stand because I wanted to know what he would be like without my surname in the room. He was polite. He listened. He apologized for the strange circumstances. I know this arrangement isn't romantic, he said. But I don't believe that gives either of us permission to be cruel. That sentence convinced me. We married 2 weeks later. The morning after City Hall, Ethan left before breakfast. He returned after midnight and said the board was in crisis. For the next month, crisis explained everything. Missed dinners. Unanswered messages. Separate bedrooms. Then the crisis ended, and the distance remained. Vanessa appeared at Cole Industries 3 months after the wedding. Ethan introduced her at a company holiday dinner as a new executive assistant. She was bright, socially effortless, and always positioned near him. Within weeks, people began treating her as though she belonged there more than I did. The contempt at home developed slowly. Ethan laughed at the jade bracelet my mother had left me. Tourist market jewelry? He asked. It was imperial green jade from an old collection, insured for almost $8 million. I removed it without correcting him. At a family lunch, Margaret asked whether I knew which fork to use. I did not mention the state dinners I had attended in Europe. When Ethan said I would be happier staying out of corporate events, I did not tell him I had led negotiations in rooms that would have intimidated half his board. At first, I stayed silent because I was studying him. Then I stayed silent because every new insult made the truth uglier. If Ethan learned who I was after 1 month, he could claim he had not understood me. After 6 months, he could say the pressure of restructuring had changed him. After a year, I no longer wanted his improved behavior. Any respect bought by my name would have been another kind of humiliation. So I became smaller inside his house. I stopped wearing tailored clothing. I used old glasses instead of contacts. I avoided photographs and declined invitations. When he ignored me, I let him. When he came home smelling like Vanessa's perfume, I moved to the guest room and said nothing. But I did not leave. Every time I told my father I wanted a divorce, he asked me to wait. Not yet, he would say. For what? I need time. To save Cole Industries? Claire, please. That single word kept me in the marriage longer than pride, hope, or love ever could. 6 months before the gala, he finally changed his answer. Divorce him, he said over lunch at his Beacon Hill townhouse. You don't need to wait anymore. I should have felt relieved. Instead, the timing unsettled me. Why now? I asked. He lowered his eyes to his coffee. Because I was wrong about him. You knew that 2 years ago. He did not respond. I thought about that conversation now, sitting on the dressing room floor in a couture gown, with an anonymous warning glowing on my phone. Maybe the important question had never been why my father wanted me to marry Ethan. Maybe it was why he needed me to stay. My phone vibrated. It was not a text. An email had arrived from an address made of random letters and numbers. There was no subject line and no message, only an attached photograph. I opened it. The image showed a paper copy of international arrival records from 3 years earlier. The page had been photographed quickly, at an angle, but the names were readable. Mine had been circled in black ink. Directly below it was another name. Vanessa Reed. We had entered the United States through New York during the same week. I enlarged the photograph. Vanessa had always told Ethan she graduated from a small Massachusetts college and had never traveled outside North America. Yet the record showed her returning from Geneva after a connection through London. A passport identifier appeared beside her name. The first letter code belonged to a category commonly used for official government travel. I zoomed in until the image blurred. Vanessa Reed, executive assistant, had traveled on an official passport. A chill moved up my arms. The message at the gala had asked who arranged the marriage. Now someone wanted me to question who Vanessa really was. The timing could not be coincidence. Footsteps sounded in the hall. Leather soles struck the marble, uneven and too fast. A key hit the console table near the stairs. Then Ethan appeared in the dressing room doorway. His tie hung loose around his neck. His eyes were red, whether from alcohol or rage I could not tell. He looked at me sitting on the floor and stopped. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he walked into the room and lowered himself against the opposite cabinet. The space between us was narrow enough that our shoes nearly touched. He smelled of whiskey and cold air. "What are you and your father doing?" he asked. "Nothing together." He laughed once, a broken sound. "You humiliated me in front of 600 people. He destroyed a 3-year partnership from the stage. You handed me divorce papers while the press filmed it. But you're not doing anything together." I did not schedule his announcement. "You knew it was coming." I knew he planned to withdraw. I didn't know he would announce it at the gala until tonight. That distinction is supposed to help? It is the truth. He leaned his head against the cabinet and shut his eyes. Vanessa resigned. I looked at him. She left before the event ended, he continued. No explanation. Her work phone is on her desk, and her personal number is disconnected. The photograph on my phone seemed to burn against my palm. Ethan opened his eyes. "Do you think she knew who you were?" The question landed with more force than he understood. I almost showed him the airport record. Then I remembered the official passport and the untraceable sender. "I don't know." "You don't know anything, do you?" His voice sharpened. "You didn't know what your father wanted. You didn't know what I thought. You don't know why Vanessa left. Yet somehow you had a gown waiting, lawyers ready, and a car at the door. I knew I was leaving you." "When?" "Before tonight." "How long before?" "Long enough." He stared at me. "Was there ever a day in this marriage when you weren't lying?" The question should have hurt. Instead, it made me tired. "I never lied about being your wife," I said. "You simply decided that being your wife was the only thing worth knowing about me." He looked away. For several seconds, only the motion sensor above the door made a faint ticking sound. Then Ethan said, Vanessa once asked me whether you had access to Whitmore's internal reporting. My breathing slowed. When? About 2 years ago. She knew the investment had been arranged through your marriage. She asked whether documents were sent to the house. What did you tell her? That you wouldn't understand them if they were. The cruelty in the answer no longer surprised me. What mattered was that Vanessa had asked. Did she ask anything else about me? He rubbed both hands over his face. I don't remember. Try. She wanted to know whether you spoke to your family. Whether you visited Whitmore offices. Whether your father contacted you directly. You said you didn't know I was his daughter. I didn't. I thought Whitmore had sponsored you somehow. A scholarship, a family debt, something. And Vanessa? I assumed she was curious. About confidential investment communications? His head lifted. The alcohol seemed to leave his face all at once. What are you saying? I placed the phone face down on the carpet. 3 years ago, when the marriage was proposed, who contacted you? A lawyer. What was his name? Ethan frowned. I don't remember. You signed a marriage agreement and a rescue investment worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You remember. He looked toward the ceiling, searching. Marcus Shaw, he said finally. Or maybe Sean. No, Marcus Shaw. I repeated the name silently. I knew every senior lawyer who had represented Whitmore Group in the last decade. I knew the outside firms, the regional counsel, the retired partners my father still called for advice. There was no Marcus Shaw. What firm? He said he was internal counsel. He wasn't. Ethan sat straighter. What do you mean? Whitmore Group has never employed a lawyer by that name. He stared at me. The dressing room lights dimmed because neither of us moved. That's impossible, he said. He had company documents. He came with authorization codes. Your father's signature was on the term sheet. Signatures can be copied. Authorization codes can be stolen. You're saying the investment was fraudulent? No. The investment was real. My father approved it. Then why would a fake lawyer negotiate the marriage? That is what I'm trying to understand. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're investigating something. I started tonight. No. You came to the gala knowing exactly how everyone would react. You knew where to stand. You knew your father would look at you. You knew those papers would be ready. I knew how to leave a bad marriage. That doesn't mean I knew who created it. He leaned forward and caught my chin between his fingers, turning my face toward the light. The gesture was controlling, but his hand shook. What aren't you telling me? I did not pull away. Why did you treat me so badly? I asked. His grip loosened. You married a woman connected to the family saving your company. You did not need to love me. You could have ignored me politely. Instead, you seemed determined to make me feel small. Why? His expression changed. Not guilt. Pain. It was brief, but unmistakable. Did someone tell you to? I asked. He released me and stood so quickly his shoulder struck the tie rack. Metal hooks jumped. A dozen ties slid to the floor in a soft avalanche of silk. You've been investigating me. I'm asking you a question. You think the whole world revolves around some plot against you? His voice rose. Your marriage is a conspiracy. Your husband is a puppet. Your father is hiding things. Maybe the simpler answer is that I didn't like you. You were civil before the wedding. I barely knew you. You said neither of us had permission to be cruel. His mouth tightened. That changed immediately after the license was signed. I continued. What happened? Nothing happened. Did Marcus Shaw contact you? His eyes flicked away. There it was. What did he tell you? Nothing. Ethan. He turned toward the door. I stood and blocked his path. What message did you receive? You don't get to question me like one of your employees. Then answer me like my husband, for the first and last time. His breathing changed. He looked past me into the dark hallway. He told me the marriage was a loyalty test, Ethan said at last. The word settled between us. What kind of test? He said Whitmore wanted proof that I could make difficult decisions and protect coal industries from outside influence. That does not explain cruelty. He said you had been placed in the marriage to report on me. Ethan's voice was low now. That you were ambitious, unstable, and angry at your family. He said if I gave you access to my work or treated you as a real partner, you would collect information and use it to take control of the company. I felt the floor shift beneath me. You believed him. He represented your father. He did not. I didn't know that. You could have asked me. And you would have told me the truth? He laughed bitterly. You never told me who you were. You never asked. Because I had been warned not to trust you. The room went quiet. For 3 years, I had believed Ethan's contempt came from arrogance. It still did, partly. No warning forced him to mock my clothes, parade Vanessa through our home, or enjoy the power of making me invisible. But someone had placed a match beside that arrogance and waited for it to burn. Who else knew about the warning? I asked. No one. Vanessa? He hesitated. My stomach tightened. She found the message on my phone, he said. A few weeks after she started working for me. And she encouraged you to believe it. She said your behavior was suspicious. What behavior? You stayed calm. You never asked for money. You didn't complain when I was gone. She said no woman entered a marriage like that without wanting something. I stared at him. So your assistant told you a wife who did not demand your money must be dangerous. When you say it like that. There is no better way to say it. His phone began ringing downstairs. The sound cut through the house. Ethan stepped around me as if grateful for escape and hurried into the hall. I followed far enough to hear him answer from the living room. Yes? His posture changed. When? He listened, one hand braced on the back of the sofa. Is she conscious? Another pause. Which hospital? He ended the call and stood motionless for 2 seconds before turning. Vanessa has been hurt. What happened? She fell down a stairwell in her building. They took her to Harborview Medical Center. Who called you? The building manager. I'm listed as her emergency contact. Of course he was. Ethan grabbed his coat from the foyer closet, but his hands moved badly. He dropped the keys once and left one shoe untied. Then he stopped at the door and looked back at me. You're coming. Why? Because before the ambulance took her, she said one thing. His face had gone pale. She said, tell the Whitmore woman her father lied to her. The sentence struck harder than anything that had happened at the gala. My father lied to me. I picked up my coat. I'll drive. Ethan did not argue. As we pulled away from the house, my phone vibrated again. The same unknown number had sent 5 words. Find Marcus Shaw before Richard does. Harborview Medical Center sat near the river, its emergency entrance washed in white light. At 1:40 in the morning, the waiting area held exhausted families, a crying child, and 2 police officers speaking quietly near a vending machine. Ethan and I sat outside the surgical unit with an empty chair between us. He had stopped taking calls from the board. His phone still lit every few minutes with names I recognized, but he turned it face down each time. Coal industries could have been collapsing minute by minute, and for once his attention was somewhere else. My phone remained open to the message about Marcus Shaw. "Who was texting you?" Ethan asked. "I don't know." "You expect me to believe that?" "I have told you more truth tonight than you learned in 3 years because you finally asked questions." He flinched and looked away. The operating room doors opened. A young doctor in navy scrubs stepped into the hall. "Who is here for Vanessa Reed?" Ethan stood. "I am." "Family?" "Her employer." The doctor frowned. "We need next of kin for treatment decisions." "She doesn't have family in Boston." The doctor looked between us. "She regained consciousness briefly. She's emotionally unstable and keeps asking for someone named Ethan Cole." Ethan glanced at me. For the first time, there was no triumph in being wanted by Vanessa. There was fear. "Go," I said. He followed the doctor through the doors. I was alone in the corridor. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A nurse pushed a metal cart past me, its wheels rattling over a seam in the floor. 2 receptionists glanced at my gown and whispered to each other. Photos from the gala were already online. By morning, every business publication in Boston would know who I was. None of that mattered. Marcus Shaw. I searched the name through Whitmore's legal archives using my secure login. Hundreds of results appeared for other people, but none connected to the company. I tried variations. Mark Shaw. Marcus Sean Shaw. M. Shaw. No internal employment records. No invoices from outside counsel. No authorization file for the marriage agreement. Yet Ethan had met someone in person. The man had carried legitimate codes and my father signed investment documents. Either he had penetrated Whitmore Group at a level that should have been impossible, or someone inside had helped him. I thought of my father's longtime general counsel, Thomas Bennett, who had worked beside him for more than 20 years. If a stranger had negotiated under Whitmore's name, Thomas should have known. But if Thomas knew, asking him might warn the person I needed to find. My phone rang. My father's name filled the screen. It was 1:43 in the morning. He never called after 10 unless someone had died. I answered. "Where are you?" he asked. His voice was clear and fully awake. "At Harborview." "Who was hurt?" "Vanessa Reed. She fell down the stairwell in her apartment building." Silence. "Dad," I said, "do you know a lawyer named Marcus Shaw?" The silence changed. It lasted only 2 seconds, but I heard the shift in his breathing. "Where did you hear that name?" "Someone told me to find him." "Who?" "An unknown number. The same person sent me travel records showing Vanessa returned from Europe the week I came back for the wedding." "Claire, leave the hospital." "Do you know him?" "Come to the Beacon Hill house now." "Vanessa may not survive." "She will survive." The certainty in his voice made my skin tighten. "How do you know?" He did not answer. "Dad, how do you know what condition she's in?" "I know more about tonight than you do." His voice dropped. "I asked you to wait 3 years because there were things I had not confirmed. I did not ask you to spend those years being abused." "What things?" "Not over the phone." "Did you arrange my marriage to Ethan?" Another pause. "I approved it." "That is not what I asked." "Claire. Did you send Marcus Shaw?" "No." The answer came too quickly to be uncertain, but too carefully to be complete. "Then who did?" "Come home." "Vanessa said you lied to me." My father exhaled slowly. "She said that because she was told to." "By whom?" I will explain when you get here. I stood, moving toward the empty end of the corridor so the nurses could not hear. You said she would survive. You said she was told what to say. How do you know? My father's voice became very quiet. Because no one pushed Vanessa Reed down those stairs. My fingers tightened around the phone. What? She jumped. The hospital corridor seemed to narrow around me. How could you possibly know that? Because I saw the security footage. You have access to her building's cameras? I have access to more than you understand. Through the small window in the surgical unit door, I saw Ethan standing beside a hospital bed. Vanessa's face was hidden, but one pale hand gripped his sleeve. My father continued, each word deliberate. I told you to wait because you were inside something larger than a bad marriage. Until I knew who was controlling it, you could not move without becoming a target. My throat tightened. And now? I asked. The line went silent. I stared through the glass at my husband, the woman who had helped destroy our marriage, and the reflection of my own face between them. Have you finally figured it out? I asked.